I am back on the beach in Las Peñas. It is a really hot and sunny day, and for some reason I decided to come out and do another walk. Actually, I was out here on the beach doing a drop-off, as we often have to do. There's just a lot of logistics of running people around out here. So since I'm down here and I have a very busy day, I'm recording this on a Saturday on the 29th, I believe it is. Hola, ¿cómo están? Bien, bien, gracias. And since I'm out here, I'm taking the opportunity to walk a little bit, get a little bit of exercise, and get the video done, and show you guys just a little bit of the beach that I've not filmed in 4 years. I'm pretty sure it's 2021, last time we were out in this portion. So we're just gonna walk along, show you guys some stuff. I'm gonna turn the camera around, do some walking, and we'll just talk about some stuff we have going on while I show you a bit of the beach. I think we got some interesting changes coming up on the show. Fingers crossed everything works out well. So it's gonna be good information for you guys, and we're gonna talk about some of the banking adventures we've had getting to the point that we are now. So see you guys right after the bump. All right, I'm Scott Allen Miller, and this is my everyday life living in León, Nicaragua. I'm out in the beach. This is Las Peñas, the largest of the beach zones, the most developed of the beach zones here in the city of León, where there was a dog attack this week. A pack of 15 dogs did attack a tourist. They're okay, but they needed to go to the hospital and had stitches, and it was pretty bad. It's the first we've heard of this in 4 years, so it's not a major concern, but there is a risk with a lot of dogs around, so it's something we're looking into. Today, I'm going to take you for, like I said, a walk around the beach. We're going to talk about some stuff we've got going on. So I just wanted to show where I am. It's a beautiful little spot. I'm going to turn that camera around and we're going to get to it. All right, we're starting from this one of the many public beach access points. This is a spot both for the water to run down in case there is torrential flooding out here on the road, and then it'll flow through here, but it's also a pedestrian way for access to the beach. All beaches in Nicaragua are public. You cannot own the actual beach. You can own on the beach. These houses are legal and everything. They own up to a certain point from the water line, and then everything from there to the water is public. So you can be reasonably private on your beach, but you can't stop people from using it. And you can see this is actually a pretty beautiful property here. I don't know how well you can see the gorgeous water straight through the house here, but it's a nice spot. We're right next door to the Casita de Playa Bamalu. This is one of the, not one of the largest, but one of the kind of mid-tier, but pretty anchor spots here on the beach. Hopefully you can see the sign. See, and I've actually never spent time here, even though it's friends of mine that own the place. It's funny how little we actually go into places. Now, this place has been interesting. I really like, okay, so the one that's taller is the one I'm speaking of. They do some really interesting architectural things all the time and have a really big house behind that I've never seen. This lot has a broken door. I don't know what's going on there. I have not walked this with or without a camera in quite some time. In 2021, I walked to this every day. So I got very familiar with this walk, and a lot of things have changed, and of course, a lot of things have not. This section of the beach, for the most part, tends to be the least developed. It's kind of the open space, and there's, for the most part, a bit of reasons for it. Once you get past Bamalu, you do have a number of small houses on the left. Of course, these are all quite nice, and still all very close to everything. We only walked for 2 minutes. But these tend to be smaller, more of the old styles. And we do have the shrimp factory. It's not really a factory, but there is an aquaculture facility just behind this. So while this looks like a nice open area and those trees are nice, it's actually got a lot of mosquitoes, and there's shrimp directly behind it. And then you can see this place, obviously long abandoned. There is a Say Vendi spray painted on here, but who knows how long ago that is from and why it's been sitting idle for so long that it has deteriorated into nothing. That's the Say Vendi I'm talking about. Good luck trying to read those numbers. You could kind of come up with something, but not very likely. Okay, so our little adventure that we have going on is we finally decided, after much time and for many reasons, we've decided to buy, after over 4 years of continuous living here in León. We know that we are stable here in León. This is home. So we decided it was time for us to have a personal vehicle. My wife and I and our kids. Oh, here is this is a really nice for rent sign. Good job with that. Los Mancada. I do not know what that means. I've seen this place used for events before, but I don't know exactly what's in the facility. It is Saturday morning, so there's a lot of places getting their deliveries today because Sunday is the big day of the week, so all the restaurants stock up on Saturday morning because Saturday night's kind of busy. Sunday is the busiest day. Monday morning can be a little bit busy. And this one spot just has a lot of trash for no particular reason. So we've decided to get a car. One of the reasons is we do actually want to travel around a lot more. And as it is, the car that we have is always tied up with the business. It's always doing compras and different runs and stuff. And people constantly need to get to one place or another. And so we really need a lot more car usage than we have. And so having something that's newer and bigger with a lot of cargo space, it's got to make a big difference. We're doing airport pickups on a regular basis and runs to PriceSmart and so forth. So getting something that's big in an SUV, and we like to go to a lot of places where having a smaller car is not as practical. So getting something taller is important. So we did some shopping around. I'm not going to tell you what we've gotten, but we have purchased the car. We do not have it in our grubby little hands yet, but we have, I think some dogs dug this out. That's funny. But we have paid for it. So hopefully everything is good there. But that's what I want to talk about is the adventure we had in paying for it. Now, it probably goes without too much saying that our bank accounts are in the United States. Those who watch my show know that I talk about that's how you keep your money. That's what you do. And you know that that's where my money is being generated. So now this place, I just want to point out, has no sign as to what it is. If you look back, there is nothing there. It is a big empty lot, which has potential. Like, this is a beautiful lot. You could do all kinds of things with it, but who knows how many lots this is, because there's clearly a wall over here. I can't tell where I'm pointing on the camera. Right here, there's a wall. So is this a lot? And then I think this is a lot. If you combine them, what a lot of space you have. But who owns either one? No one knows. But this one has an hours of attention. This is the schedule of when they're open. Clearly, never is the real answer. Never open. But this was a thing not so long ago. These places disappear so fast. By the time you hear that something has been opened, it's already gone. And you're like, who puts so much money into opening a business but doesn't save enough to like have any chance of actually running the business? Like, it's crazy. And this place, what's that logo at the top? Has nothing to do with the name of the place, El Faro. The things people do, it's weird. Anyway, so you know that about my banking. So we need to pay a car dealership here in Nicaragua. Now, Paul, my business partner, has purchased his own private car previously. He has a Samsung, that is not a thing. He has a Suzuki. And when he purchased that, he purchased it from Casa Pellis. They're the largest car dealership in the country, and they handle things like Toyota and Suzuki. And I think they have Hyundai as well. They have a number of very popular car brands under them. And so we're working with them. They have a U.S. bank account. So if you're going to pay from the U.S., you can do a transfer directly into their account in the US. So it's all domestic, very, very simple. You don't have to worry about anything. It's as easy as could be. Now, we'll talk about financing in a minute. So we're talking about doing a full payment. You're just paying for the vehicle in this case. Buenas. Buenas. Make sure I don't get run over. Okay. And so that's easy. But we purchased through Grupo Q. And with Grupo Q, they do not have an American bank account. There's Chepe again. Every time I'm here, Chepe's going by. That's hilarious. So we had a more complicated thing. They have a bank account here in Nicaragua, so we needed to pay that. With Casa Pellis, of course, they were also paying an account in... That is Renee, who is a waiter at The Simple, but formerly at Desperados. And so in all cases, the money is eventually getting into a Nicaragua bank account, but it's whether we're doing the international transfer or they are. So in this case, we needed to do that. So once we got that figured out, we have a credit union in New York, which, as normally is the case, this is Pargrito Rojo, by the way, pretty well known, very much a local kind of fish place. but it's supposed to be pretty good, not too expensive, good reputation. This is Ol Azul, which sometimes acts like they're open, sometimes it acts like they're closed, always acts like they're for sale. And yeah. We watched this place be built on the show in 2021. We're actually pretty far along, and I'm going this distance for a reason, and we'll show you when we get there. This is Aki, which is a play on the word here. Also Aki, but that's A-Q-U-I. And very small little boutique place that looks really fancy. I never stay at other people's places on the beach, because why? But it's well known to be a really nice place. And yes, that was a Mercedes-Benz sitting in there. You don't see too many of those in the country. Okay. So credit unions generally can't do their own international transfers. They have to use a third-party processor to do that. It's just the nature of the SWIFT system. So we got all the paperwork that we needed from Grupo Q, worked out all the plans. This is Hotel Tranquilo, owned by some friends of ours, opened up a few years ago. Hola! And you can see how much, if you watch my old episodes, how much this little strip has changed. Not a ton, but they've definitely improved it. Oh, I've never seen this one open before. And then this is our friend's house. And so we got all the paperwork, we went to our bank. We're like, okay, we got to do this transfer. And we had already put a down payment. We put the down payment down using a credit card. That's just $600. So the car was ours. It wasn't going to go anywhere. It was all locked in. Price was locked in. So the deal was done. We just had to transfer the money. So I'm just walking you through the process. This is not an interesting part of the story. But if someone is interested, oh, we got a good view of some of the houses up here right now. Let's get these. It's interesting how different the lots are in different areas of the beach. You really get a totally different feel in different spots. So the process was, we decided on the car, we negotiated a deal, we put $600 down, and then the car was ours. The car is not on the lot. They have a show car, which you could buy in theory, but they also, and there's only very few cars in general. There are very few cars move in the country. It's not like they're selling thousands of cars. So if you're buying one, likely you're the only one there that day, or that week maybe. So we bought one, and the one that we're getting is sitting in a free port somewhere in the country, meaning it's physically in the country, but it is legally outside the country. It has not yet come through customs. So once we put the $600 down, they began the process of moving it through customs so that it could enter the country and be sold. So that is underway. You may recognize where we are from a recent episode as I show this. Now our job is to actually pay for the vehicle. So we asked our bank to transfer the money. I've done this before. I do wire transfers. I pretty much know the process. That took a few hours. There's a lot of checks and balances, a lot of phone calls and stuff. And my bank at first is like, okay, we're going to send the money. Then they're like, oh no, there's a problem. So I called in. I talked to them, and they were like, oh, okay. We talked to them. They released the money. Everything's fine. Then I got an email saying that, hola, that they could not send the money, that they don't do transfers to Nicaragua. And we're like, say what now? So I called in again, and I was told that there was a OFAC sanction on the country, and that they could not send money, that wire transfers were forbidden by US OFAC sanctions. I said, well, that's funny, because we do wire transfers into the country all the time from the largest US bank, so something's wrong, because clearly that doesn't block wire transfers. Okay, we're now at the spot that I wanted to show you. So recently we did an episode on the beach of a $4,000 lot that is for sale, and that is right where that guy is on the motorcycle right now. We just walked along the beach. Hola. And oh, he just turned around. So that is where it sits on the beach, and we're going to head back because I have to get back to the house. So we're going to show everything in the opposite direction with different light. I think it'll be cool to really see what the beach looks like. This is the main facility of the shrimp processing factory on the left. So we're like, that can't be right. We do this all the time. So then the bank said, oh, well, I assume you're doing something different, like you own the account that it's going to. I said, well, yeah, that's true. We're normally doing wire transfers into our own corporate bank account in Nicaragua, not a third-party entity like a car dealership. They said, oh, that's the problem. You have to do that. If it's your own thing, the OFAC sanctions don't count. I said, okay, so we just need to use that instead. They're like, yeah, you just have to use that instead. So that ended the first day. Second day, first thing in the morning, did the wire transfer to our company's bank account here in Nicaragua to show that we owned it and it shouldn't be any problem. So we got an immediate kickback. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't do transfers to Nicaragua. So I called in. Hey, I talked to you guys yesterday. This is my own place. And I put all that information in. I have all the records of this is my bank account, so the OFAC sanctions don't count. They said, oh, actually, there aren't OFAC sanctions. That's just something they said. Actually, it's our processor just doesn't like Nicaragua and won't do business there. They claim, now we can discuss this in a second, they claim that there's lots of fraud in wire transfers to Nicaragua, so they just won't do business there. You're just out of luck because it's Nicaragua. A bigger bank, meaning a bigger processing bank, not a bigger credit union, may not have any problem because you know your business accounts have no problem. So clearly, Nicaragua is fine for doing wire transfers, but we can't help you. Our processor won't work with us. So that was the end of our bank being able to send money. So this is a real problem to be aware of, that here in Nicaragua, and I did find out it is PNC, is the processor, simply for their own reasons, refuses to do business with Nicaragua. Now their claim is that it's bank transfers here involve a lot of fraud. Now, this is one of those problems with US banks. Things like Zelle now is doing all kinds of things to restrict how you're able to transfer money from your own accounts because they claim that they know better about fraud than you do, which I suppose at times may be valid. But it's your money. At some point, you should have the right to move your money around as you want. US banks are given, I think, way too much latitude in deciding who and when is allowed to get your money, and they're allowed to just block you from doing things. Now, of course, they can't block you from taking out cash and handing it, and they can't block things like crypto transfers because those are not done through the actual controlled bank mechanisms in most cases. So there are ways to potentially do things, but boy, do they make it hard. And the international banking mechanisms that are supposed to make the US banking infrastructure so good are not reliable, and you can't depend on them. And they're allowed to, at their discretion, refuse to transfer your money without having a definitive policy. All right, so that's a big deal. Now, in their defense, there is a lot of pressure on US banks to do something about all of the fraud in the US banking system. That is legit. And it is also legit. Oh, I want to show, this is probably way too bright. I'm gonna go over to the shadows. I showed this a number of times in 2021, this kind of through the trees, really cool. Unfortunately, it's full of trash, but this really neat spot to go back to the beach. This is really a public access that you can use, but it doesn't feel like it. It just winds between these two diagonal structures and comes down to a really narrow entrance onto the beach. I'm gonna walk over here in the shade a little bit and show you guys the sunny side instead. So, legitimately, many of the wire transfers coming into Nicaragua from the United States go because of scams and fraud, mostly from the things we talk about, car and real estate and legal scams in San Juan del Sur. Of course they happen in the rest of the country. Of course they happen in other places. And of course, lots of legitimate things happen in San Juan del Sur and other places. But there is a well-known hub of fraud, and the manner in which much of that fraud is done is by doing deals in Nicaragua, but doing the financial transfers from the United States using mechanisms like the wire system in order to make it nearly untraceable and, most importantly, unenforceable, so that, ooh, we got a bit of wind, we'll take just a second, making it all but impossible to prosecute someone who is perpetrating a fraud of this nature because there's no violent crime and the crime is committed between jurisdictions, with the maybe convincing someone to spend money happening in one jurisdiction, but then maybe a contract, if there is one, in one jurisdiction, but the actual movement of money happening in another jurisdiction. And when that happens, you're really depending on a lot of trust between the financial institutions, between the accounts that you're dealing with, between the people involved. There's very little ability to legally prosecute because nobody actually has complete jurisdiction and nobody has complete visibility. If all the countries involved decide that it's well worth prosecuting, then they optionally can share data and optionally decide to hold people accountable to some amount of laws. But the ability to research that, the ability to pull that information, a lot of it is extremely difficult. And in a place like Nicaragua and the United States, which are not countries that generally cooperate on a whole lot of things, the chances that they're going to cooperate on data sharing to try to uncover whether or not someone was fraudulently charged too much in a house transaction is unlikely, because it's going to involve a lot of opening up the books and sharing of information that, without definitive proof ahead of time, is generally just not going to be accepted. No one's going to agree to do that process. So you can imagine how easy it is for someone who is looking for an opportunity to commit fraud. You move to a place like Nicaragua, you look for a place like San Juan del Sur, where you have a lot of expats going who have a ratio of not having done as much research as they should have, who are very likely to be trusting of another expat who happens to be there and says they've been there for a long time, and then uses some combination of international money movement and some amount of obscure legal situations and blind real estate or other transactions, and adds in a layer of confidence and trust to take advantage of people. So if you're looking to do that, that's how you would do it, right? If you were to describe what you would want as a con artist, that scenario really ends up being kind of the perfect storm of all the opportunity of people are coming from this place, going to this place specifically, into this specific area. They have these specific trust likelihoods. They have these particular vulnerabilities. It's just everything comes together to make the things we talk about all the time, things like real estate and legal scams, residency scams, those types of things, investment scams, are so easy, so natural, that you're going to get a lot of it. It's going to happen. And so I don't know that the bank is illegitimate in making this claim, but just because a lot of fraud happens there does not mean you should shut down the ability to do business there. If that was the logic, we wouldn't do business with the state of Georgia, because Atlanta is famous for credit card fraud and identity theft, right? So if that logic held up, why would they allow anyone in Georgia to do banking if they were actually trying to protect against that kind of fraud in that way? Because that's what's happening here. The entire country of Nicaragua is being blocked out because one or two towns have a relatively high ratio of fraud. That's incredibly problematic. Why would León, where I am here, be lumped in with those places? Right? There should be a different mechanism for detecting fraud, a different mechanism for protection. Just not doing business isn't an answer. So I'm not happy about that. But what was our answer? So we had another bank account with Wells Fargo. We moved the money from our credit union into Wells Fargo. They were able to do everything very quickly. Our bank with PNC was only able to send once a day, which itself was a big problem. With Wells Fargo, they were able to send in a few hours. The money arrived here in our own. We wanted to eliminate any potential problems, so we moved the money into our own account here in Nicaragua. We could have done direct. We could have paid straight from our bank account at Wells Fargo in the US into the Grupo Q's bank account here in Nicaragua. That's important to understand that we could have. However, there's more checks and balances for that, because it is one person in the US to a different person in Nicaragua, and a non-established transaction. If you were paying them, say, every month, you would establish that transaction. It wouldn't be a problem. Maybe the first time, but not after that. But because this was the very first time and we were in a hurry, oh, we got a cute little dog popped out here, we wanted to make sure it went through. So we pay from our account in the US to our account in Nicaragua on a regular basis. So we did that. It went through immediately, and our account here in Nicaragua was able to pay, and the transaction from our account here to their account here took seconds because it was in the same bank. So it was just a matter of saying, oh, we need to put it in this account, and it was instant for all intents and purposes. So that ended up being relatively easy once we found out that that PNC was flat out blocking transactions and we had been misinformed about it. Really, had we just not been misinformed, if they'd have first thing said, hey, our transactor won't deal with Nicaragua, or if the transactor had told them that it wouldn't deal with Nicaragua, because they didn't tell them either, we would have sped us along and we would have done everything on the first day and been done all within a few hours. Instead, it ended up taking 3 days and a lot of scrambling, because we were trying to get a February deal under our belts where there was a discount and some stuff. And so, I don't know if we got a discount, but they threw in some, like extra service time or something as part of a sweetener, and we didn't want to miss it. So we were trying really hard to get that process done in the month of February, which we did end up getting done. So, pun intended, we really ended up going down to the wire in order to be able to get the car purchased in the month where we were getting a deal. We could have waited a little bit longer and gotten it under a different month and just given up a little bit of, the deal really wasn't that much, but we wanted to make sure we were getting everything that we had planned on and the maximum deal. So we raced at that, and we did. And I think that the new car is going to give us a lot of opportunity for enhanced content on the show, which I'm not going to go into today as to why I think that is. We're going to save that for the actual car buying episode. So this is a little bit of a teaser for you guys to know that we have this upcoming show pretty soon about the car buying process, buying it from Grupo Q, which is not the main. A lot of people buy from Casa Pellas, but getting something from Grupo Q as an expat is a little bit different. Of course, we are full immigrants. We are residents with our paperwork, so that makes it a little bit easier. Obviously, it's complicated, and a lot of expats who don't become residents struggle to get a car or have to do it under a company name or something, so it's a very different process, but this is us getting it as residents. And hopefully that means that there's just going to be a lot of cool things solved by having this car. And the car itself, I think, is going to be a little bit interesting, just in general, like just having a different car. We're going to talk about some of that down here and life driving in Nicaragua. So that is something we've been doing a lot the last few days. It has been keeping me really busy, along with some disasters and positive things at work. Work's just been really busy, I guess, is the ups and downs, evening out to a pretty good resulting state, I think. But between those things and dealing with this car, it has been absolutely a crazy week, but good things. I think in the end, really looking forward to that. Now, it is going to be a while until we have the car. It is not as simple as paying for it and driving it off the lot, so don't be looking for it in an episode tomorrow or anything, but I wanted to share this bit of finance, kind of logistics here in Nicaragua is the kind of thing that, yes, you can get these things done, but don't be surprised, don't be caught unaware when there's going to be some complications. And we had forewarned them that, yep, we're going to be funding this from the US, so there's going to be a couple of extra steps, but we definitely do this all the time, at least in some capacity, and it's going to be fine. We have the cash in our account. Now, I did promise to talk about financing a little bit. So here, financing typically is done on 108 months, which is 9 years. And very importantly, and if you don't understand compound interest, simply don't do any loans, period. That is something you must understand to even discuss having a loan. And I mean that is every single bank in the world knows to talk about monthly payments and things, and not to talk about the total amount of what your interest is. This is very basic, how to make people give you lots of money. So just to be clear, here at 108 months, they give you 13% interest. We did qualify for financing. We're about as good as you could possibly be. We have enough cash in our bank accounts to pay for the car. We just don't want to move that cash around. We, obviously, because we are buying the car with cash, we have multiple businesses that are functional and long-term here in Nicaragua that are able to be used as collateral. They can prove that the money for the car exists in country, not just in liquid form, but in country form. We are permanent residents. We're not just new residents that have, we didn't just get our residency, and we don't have like a retirement or a marriage residency that could be more temporary. We have a permanent investor residency. So all those things add up to, like, we're kind of the best case scenario for a bank to give us a loan. We have an amazing credit score. We actually have enough credit. We could buy it on credit cards if they would let us do that. That'd be a little bit crazy. There's a lot of things, right? And with all of that, it's 9-year loan, 13% interest, and there is no benefit to paying it off early. You incur all of the interest to the 108 months on the first day. Plus, the rate is variable. So if they decide to raise the rate, you may owe an indefinite amount of money in the future that you have no idea about. But what we found is that it was a little bit over triple. It's about 3.2 times, or 3,200% total interest to be paid on a car. Meaning if you were to buy a, say, $100,000 car, which would be quite expensive, you would have to pay $320,000 for that car. Over the period of 9 years. Now, you'd spread it out over 9 years, so each month you'd be able to make the payment without too much of a problem. But $320,000 for a $100,000 car, that's pretty crazy. Now, we weren't looking at anything like that, but a $30,000 car will cost you almost exactly $100,000 over the course of 9 years. That is quite the financial penalty for taking out interest. So it's something you need to be really aware of. And what Americans, and this is what they had my wife convinced of. They're like, well, there's no penalty for paying it off early. I'm like, that is not the same as not having to pay the interest. Of course, they're not going to penalize you for giving them money. Nobody does that. But they're not, I don't think, because they didn't say it, they're actually calculating that interest on the first day. So we borrow that money for a day and we think, oh, we got the cash tomorrow, we'll just pay it off and only incur a few days of that high interest rate. Absolutely not. That's not something that very many Americans are used to. It is uncommon for U.S. banks to do that, especially with cars. No one does it with cars. People will be pointing it out and protecting you. But here in Nicaragua, people don't generally come into money to be able to pay things off early. The idea of taking out a long-term loan to hopefully pay it off early is not common. And since 2018, when so many foreigners bailed on their loans and crashed the market and put the banks into a tailspin, they no longer offer those types of things. So just broadly in this market, you assume you don't get any benefits from paying off early. So if you want to borrow money for 9 years, make sure you truly intend to borrow it for 9 years, and no matter what happens in your life, you're willing to pay that interest for forever. Unfortunately, we got people showing up on a motorcycle, so the dog is losing her mind. All right, thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller. As always, watch another video, share with family and friends. Stay tuned for the episodes where we show off the process of and actually getting a new car, and I will see all of you tomorrow.